Hey everyone, I am here with author, columnist, journalist, and founder of counterpropa.com, H.A. Goodman. How's it going, H.A.? It's been a long time since we have spoken.
I know, Mike. How you been?
I've been doing really well, hanging in there in spite of the ridiculously toxic political climate. How about you?
Same here. It's been crazy. I really appreciate being on your show.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on, man. I don't know about you, but just especially within the last week, it's been difficult to sleep when you think about, I want to pull up one of your headlines here. So on propa.com, you say Trump could start World War III with another Syria airstrike. So I was going to ask you about your opinion on that, but that kind of tells me that we're on the same page here. How terrifying really should we all be? I've been accused of being too hyperbolic when I mention World War III, but clearly you agree with me. I mean, are we right to panic right now?
Absolutely. It's not hyperbole at all. In fact, I have a weekly show on Monday with Tim Black. It's called No Sellouts. And the last No Sellouts, we talked about it. And in terms of the article in Counterpropa, it's also in the Huffington Post. Number one, there are over 4,000 soldiers Russian soldiers in Syria right now. Number two, the Russians are conducting twice as many airstrikes as we are in Syria. Number three, they have over 7,000 nuclear warheads. We have around 6,900 nuclear warheads. Both countries have a no first use policy, meaning that both countries reserve the right to utilize nuclear weapons first without an adversary launching anything at them. The big issue with Syria is that it's a proxy war. The Russians, Vladimir Putin has direct national interest to keeping Assad in power. Iran and Syria are really the only allies of Russia in the Middle East. We have Israel, Saudi Arabia, Gulf nations, the majority of them, even Iraq and Afghanistan, even though we've destabilized those countries, the power structure is aligned with us. So their greatest ally aside from Iran is Syria. They have a decades-long relationship throughout the Cold War, militarily and politically, with Syria. We had the chance, if it's about humanitarian reasons, we had the chance in 2012. The United Nations and Russia both gave us peace deals to negotiate. We denied every request. Obama and Clinton basically said we'd rather have a proxy war than any chance at peace with Assad, even though Bill Clinton worked with Milosevic for peace in the Balkans. And up until the Libya fiasco, which Hillary Clinton was the deciding factor, President Obama was weighing whether or not to remove Gaddafi. Joe Biden was against it. Clinton was for it. That's his biggest mistake. He told Fox News that was his biggest mistake. There are now slave auctions in Libya. It's completely destabilized. It's a failed state, and there's ISIS safe havens throughout Libya. So basically, it was never about humanitarian reasons. It was always about regime change. Assad is not a good person. He's a bastard, fine. But we worked with dictators throughout our history. If, let's just say, we remove Assad, are Howard Dean and Neera Tanden going to occupy Damascus and fight IEDs? Because once we remove a dictator, we send the army to occupy and to rebuild the country. And then our soldiers face IEDs, snipers, ambushes. But the really big issue with Russia, which gets back to there's no hyperbole. Russia will never let Assad fall, ever. If we forcibly, let's say through further airstrikes, because Trump said he's open to more airstrikes, if we provoke Russia, they have every incentive to either call our bluff or to escalate. And they're not, even though it's not a bipolar world anymore, they still have they have more nuclear warheads than we do. So, and we've encircled them in terms of NATO, in terms of the world. We are a dominant, we're more dominant than Russia is. They can't really counter us directly, economically, or even militarily.
Right.
But in Syria, if they're pushed, it's like cornering an animal. So that is a very dangerous situation, which, if I agree 100% with you, it's not a matter of if something horrible takes place. It could be a matter of when.
Right. And, at the beginning of my segment on Syria, I opened basically by saying, I hate to say this, but this is the start of something catastrophic in terms of foreign policy. Now, you brought up humanitarianism and how you really see this push in the media to frame this as a humanitarian intervention. But, if we're really going to go that route, don't you think that the same media people should be talking about how we're currently arming Saudi Arabia and they are executing Yemeni civilians, they're carrying out war crimes, they're bombing schools and hospitals? If we're really worried about humanitarian issues, then why aren't we talking about that? Clearly, I think that you see the military-industrial complex having its way with the media right now, and when you have, Democrats and Republicans in Congress both pushing for the same thing, I think that, maybe you kind of are on the same mind with me when I really feel like everyone is kind of coming together like they did before Iraq to push us into war.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. The Washington Post and the New York Times, they're basically public relations firms. And we saw that with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. The Washington Post first went after Bernie Sanders and did everything possible to prop up Hillary Clinton and then go after Trump. So it's not about policies or ideology. In terms of war, they all unite. The Democratic Party, the establishment in the Republican Party, and the media all unite. And if you've noticed, there's no more Russian hacking. There's less Russian hacking discussion now.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, no, it's Trump had a lot of incentive domestically to launch the airstrikes. What took place is neoconservatives, and this is in The Intercept, neoconservatives fundraised for Hillary Clinton. So the same people who slithered into the Democratic Party from the Republican Party are now running the show in terms of Democratic foreign policy. They're running the show also. You have the McCains and Lindsey Grahams out there that are also war hawks and pushing for for Syria regime change. It's never about, you're 100% right, Mike. It's not about humanitarian issues. We don't care if Assad kills hundreds of thousands conventionally, but only through gas. So in 2012, if we cared about, because we had worked with dictators before to find peaceful solutions to different conflicts, the Balkans being one example. This is why when I said that I would only vote for Bernie Sanders and then I would vote for Jill Stein, this is why both parties are the same, because they unite on war, foreign policy. Both parties don't want to break up too big to fill banks. A lot of Democrats say, "Oh, look at the climate change. Look at what Trump's doing with the EPA." Okay, well, where's the green economy? Because the Green Party, Jill Stein has an actual date where she wants a green economy, where the economy is running on renewable energy sources. Democrats do not have that. So that's why I say, this is a prime example. They've all united, and what is being done to Tulsi Gabbard is absolutely horrendous, and it's one of the big reasons Trump is probably going to win again in 2020. If he continues with the hawkishness, he might not, because then Americans will say, well, you know what? If we're going to have war and the military-industrial complex, we might as well have that without the border wall. So that's what we're at right now. But what Howard Dean and Neera Tanden and all the Democrats are doing is they're trying to alienate anti-war voters, and they're trying to disparage the only person, aside from Bernie, but really Tulsi Gabbard is the loudest voice. You have Tulsi Gabbard, you have Nina Turner, you have Bernie Sanders. All three are threats to the Democratic establishment, because the Democratic establishment sees eye to eye with John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Paul Ryan on war. There's no difference between them. That's why when people were saying, well, no, you have to vote for Hillary because then you have Trump. Well, yeah, but they both now want regime change.
Right. And so when you made this point about Democrats and Republicans effectively being the same party, especially when it comes to foreign policy. I mean, I don't think this is a stretch. I know that some progressives will kind of push back against that assertion. But think about this. I mean, if we have Donald Trump, I agree with you. Everything he's doing with the EPA, women's rights, LGBT rights, it's all horrible. What he's doing, though, is he is rolling back social progress via executive order. These are all things that can be reversed when we actually do get a progressive president in the White House. However, things that they both agree on, both parties, intervention, regime change, these are things that can't be reversed. You can't take back the lives that are lost once you bomb another country. So this is why when H.A. Goodman, just talking to the viewers, or when I say, they're so similar that why come out to vote for them? You might as well, stay home or vote Republican. I mean, I'm not encouraging people to stay home, but I mean, this is the mindset that a lot of voters that I've spoken with have. This is why. It's because Democrats don't offer us anything differently, and it's so frustrating. And one thing I wanted to ask you about now is you mentioned Russia. So you've also been on the same page with me when it comes to Russia and their Russian hysteria. So I want to ask you now, what are they going to do? Because Trump clearly has shown that, if you're willing to bomb Putin's ally, you're not a bitch of Putin. So what are they going to do? Do you think this is all just kind of going to fizzle out? Are they going to try to continue this narrative? I mean, I just kind of want to get your general take on this situation now that they're kind of backed into a corner.
Well, do you know how insane the whole thing? It's so insane because everybody from Howard Dean to Neera Tanden can't name to the New York Times got a Pulitzer Prize on their courageous coverage of the Russia's reemergence or their attempt at trying to further their value system, some bold, baloney like that. It is so insane and it is so ridiculous and ludicrous. There's nothing that they can actually point to. So Bush, when George W. Bush, Russia had a military intervention in Georgia, neighboring country. He did nothing. Under President Obama, there was an intervention in Ukraine. Obama did nothing militarily. Russia has the 12th ranked economy in the world. They don't have the economy to go into Poland or to attack Poland. They are not attacking and occupying or controlling any country in the world. Nobody is accusing them of that. So there's no specific military danger that they pose to the West. They're not going to. This isn't the Cold War where they're possibly going to invade Poland. It's not going to happen. They can't. The whole Russian Putin evil Russian from 1996 to 2009, around 96 journalists were killed in Russia. After 2009, Hillary Clinton and President Obama signed off on 20% of U.S. uranium capacity being sold to Uranium One, and Uranium One sold that to the Kremlin. Now, the Snopes article has nothing to do with what I just said. The Snopes article is just saying that Clinton wasn't paid directly. Fine. But if they're that big of an enemy, why sell uranium that they could then sell to North Korea or to anyone else? So there's nothing specifically that people like Neera Tanden or Howard Dean or the Democratic establishment can actually say, well, Russia will do this if we don't oppose them. The whole Syria thing is, well, this is a way to fight Russia without fighting Russia. It's a proxy war. So we can have an arm wrestling match, and if Assad falls, we'll win. But then who's going to rebuild the country? Right. And if we cared about the country, this is what Democrats, especially, because Republicans, we know who they are. We know that at least one thing I respect about Republicans is that they have a value system and they vote for politicians that honor their value system. So Trump, he said he's going to build a wall. They want a wall. They want whatever, the executive orders, and he appeased his base. What happens to progressives who want single payer, breaking up too big to fail banks, reinstating Glass-Steagall? They are bullied, stomped on. You better fall in line. If you don't, you are ostracized. You get, hit pieces by the Daily Beast. Daily Beast wrote about me just because I said Bernie was better and Clinton would not win. And so that's the difference between both parties. But in terms of the future, there's no anti-war movement in America. It's been completely swallowed up and almost destroyed by the Democratic Party. There needs to be an anti-war movement. If there is, you then have a split between anti-war Democrats and Republicans. Then there's a choice. If people in 2020 are going to say, you know what, I can get a corporate centrist Democrat or Trump, they might just pick Trump. Right. Because at least he is who he is. He's not a liar or somebody that stomps on his base. The Democratic Party is not true to its base, and you see it on social media. You see it everywhere. If you don't follow the party line, if you're not afraid of Russia, then there's something wrong with you. If you don't believe that Trump worked with WikiLeaks to hack the DNC to undermine Clinton's chances, then there's something wrong with you.
Right. So I'll follow up. So I would disagree with you when you say that Trump's not a liar. I think the difference between Trump and the Democrats is that he just believes his lies. Yeah. I mean, Trump is a liar, but that's I agree with you. Trump, though, he's at least truer to the right value system. So
right,
he's actually trying to give the base something in terms of the wall. I see what you're saying. Whereas with Barack Obama, I mean, we got crumbs here and there from Obama, but I mean, I felt like he didn't ultimately do, and I think I'm not alone here. Clearly, he didn't do what he sought to do, which is change the way that we do politics in Washington, whatever the hell his tagline was back then. So no, I agree with you. I think that the Republican Party, they are truer, to their base. I think that they at least represent their base for the diehard Republicans. Whereas with the Democratic Party, you elect them to be anti-war. We elected, Obama to be anti-war, and we got Libya. We got the same
drones.
Yeah, right. The drones. And he didn't pull out of Iraq. When for me, I mean, that was the first time I was old enough to vote for Obama. So I voted for him. Basically, that was an anti-Iraq war vote. I wanted him to pull out of Iraq. And look at that. We are still in Iraq right now. So it's so frustrating to me. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you about was Bernie Sanders' unity tour with Tom Perez, and what your thoughts are on this, because I see this and it makes me cringe, because I feel as though Bernie Sanders, he's a powerful person. He is the most popular politician in the country right now. So I feel as though by going on this unity tour, he's tacitly endorsing the Democratic Party and is in effect rewarding them for bad behavior. I mean, they recently voted down a ban on lobbyist contributions. They are now cheerleading Donald Trump when they purport to be the resistance, now that he is trying to start another war. So do you think I'm being too unreasonable here? Because I just feel like, I mean, and I don't hate Bernie Sanders. I'm still on the Bernie bus. I don't know if you are. I think you probably are too. Yeah. But I mean, really? I feel as though Bernie Sanders strategically, I want him to have some backbone and treat Democrats the same way that Trump treated Republicans. I mean, when it seemed as though they tried to steal the nomination from Trump, what did he do? He started to threaten them and saying he's going to run as an independent. I want Bernie Sanders to kind of do the same thing. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I don't know if I'm being too unreasonable here.
No, you're 150% right. You're 100% right. Bernie Sanders is, I love him, and there's two ways to look at it. One is that he's trying to reform from within the system. He got completely screwed, and he knows what could take place, because right now he's the glue between the progressives who hate Democrats and the Democrats who want regime change. So he's the only person in between the Howard Dean and Neera Tannens of the world who don't like Tulsi Gabbard, and the people who are like, I'm voting for Green Party, I will never vote Democrat again, or I'm only voting for Tulsi Gabbard, Nina Turner, Bernie Sanders. That's it. If he leaves the Democratic Party, Democrats are absolutely screwed. There's no inspirational motive. The only inspirational voices like Nina Turner or Tulsi Gabbard, they're threats to the Democratic Party. So in terms of the establishment, they're just fearmongers. They fear Russia. That's it. That's not going to get progressives to the polls. That kind of thing, that rhetoric gets conservatives to the polls. If you can frighten conservatives and say, oh, these people are invading us, that gets them, motivated. Bold messages get progressives motivated. So you're 100% right. I wish that he didn't do it, because he's rewarding He's absolutely rewarding cheating, horrible behavior, corruption. The alternative is that he leaves, or he threatens the Democratic Party, saying, I'll remain independent if you don't change. I'm not going to go ahead and speak up for you anymore, or defend, or further the Russia thing, which is also, I was very disappointed when Bernie furthered the Russian hacking thing.
Oh, me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. So you're 100% right. I just think that the only hope now in terms of a counter-establishment voice are two people, Nina Turner, but Tulsi Gabbard. And I think that ultimately my philosophy from day one, when I was saying in 2015 that Hillary Clinton could not win, and people on Reddit and all these places, they're like, oh, this guy's crazy, da-da-da. I talked about favorability ratings. I talked about all of the issues that Clinton, the real reasons why, and the fact that she was advised by neoconservatives. And we see that now with the merger of both parties. We see that all the true colors are coming up. They don't hate Trump anymore. Now they're okay kind of with Trump, sort of, because they have to defend Clinton's foreign policy and at the same time kind of defend what Trump's doing because, it's very similar to regime change. But the only way to defeat Trump, I always say now, is to defeat the Democratic establishment. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, Mike, let's say Tulsi runs and they do everything possible to prevent her from winning. Let's say Bernie runs or Nina Turner runs and they do everything possible from preventing them from winning. Or maybe they cheat, but in a more surreptitious manner, where it's not overt cheating. What if we don't have another DNC WikiLeaks emails? What if we don't know just how horrible they were to Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie in 2020? And then they get, I always say Pelosi Schumer 2020. It's like I always joke around saying they've whipped up such a frenzy over the Russian hacking and all that if Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer ran in 2020, would people vote for them? And the Pelosi Schumer progressives and Democrats, the only way to defeat them is to say, I'm not voting for anyone who won't break up banks, who won't reinstate Glass-Steagall, who won't ban fracking, who won't oppose regime change. If you have backbone, as you listen, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that they don't like me. That's fine. It's totally cool. But have some backbone. Don't just say, oh, I'm so afraid of Trump. He's rolling back all of these things. Well, how do you think he got there? Mm-hmm. He got there because there was a Democrat that didn't motivate, that didn't say, I'm going to do big things, break up banks, bring our soldiers home, all of these things. If you have a centrist, Trump is not only going to win, he's going to win in the same way he won against Hillary. And one quick thing, you're 100%, one reason you're 100% right, Mike, about Bernie is that as much as I rail against Hillary Clinton, there's one positive about her in terms of money. She raised $1.2 billion. Trump, as this reality show star, raised $600 million. Spent $600 million. Bernie only spent $200+ million. There's like a DNC lawsuit now. Bernie voters trying to get their money back. Trump won the Electoral College with $600 million. Democrats say, "Oh, we won the popular vote." Well, who gives a crap?
Right.
You're supposed to win the popular vote anyway, and you outspent him 2-1. Mm-hmm. Trump is going. He's president. He'll be president for 4 years in 2020. He's going to raise more money than anybody not named Clinton. Yep. If Clinton doesn't run again, which who knows, she might, and she'll lose again. Mm-hmm. But if it's somebody else, it's doubtful that they raise that much money, especially, and you don't have to raise $1 billion if you stand for something like banning fracking, because then people will just give money on their own. But if you don't stand for something and you're centrist, you need that money. And I don't see Democrats raising that type of money. If they're not Hillary Clinton, you don't have all those big ties. So I think Democrats are screwed in 2020, especially with what they're doing. They're doubling down on everything that got them to lose.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, you mentioned Hillary Clinton. And I know that you probably get the same criticism that I get, that we still kind of talk about Hillary Clinton relatively frequently. But the thing about Hillary Clinton is that because she's such a fundraising giant, she still has a large influence on the Democratic Party and its politics. I mean, they can call up Hillary Clinton anytime and get her to do a fundraiser, and she will raise them millions of dollars. And so long as she is basically helping them to raise money and she is still out there on the speaking tour, she has a huge influence on the Democratic Party's politics. So she's basically holding them back from what they need to be doing, which is move towards a more grassroots-oriented approach, even though Debbie Wasserman Schultz might say they're already grassroots. But they desperately need to change. And she's basically stopping them from reforming the party. And I think that so long as Hillary Clinton has this ongoing presence and she's coming out of the woods, it seems as though they're still looking to her as the Democratic Party leader, because it seemed like they were kind of lost after the election. They were like, you heard Nancy Pelosi talk about, well, Obama, he was just president, so I don't think it's crazy to say that he's not the leader. They're lost, and they need someone to rally behind, and they don't want it to be Bernie Sanders. It can't be Bernie because he threatens the cash cow, so they'll kind of trot him out, and they'll say, this is who we're like, but, behind closed doors, they're still taking corporate money. So really, I kind of still feel as though they look to Hillary Clinton for guidance. And it's frustrating because so long as she's in the picture, so long as we have corporate Democrats like Cory Booker getting these fluff pieces written for them, they're not going to change because, like you said, they need that money. I think that's such a huge part of it. And they don't know how to raise the money exclusively via grassroots because they've pissed all over the base or they've shitted on the base and pissed us off. And what who wants to donate to them if we feel as though my money isn't going to buy me anything, politically? So it's kind of just the situation where I feel like if Donald Trump lost, I would be surprised in 2020 at the rate that we're going, especially now that they're rallying behind him in Syria. So I feel like we're just fucked, HA.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100% with you. Look, when people say, oh, Hillary's gone, they don't get it. The only reason we're talking about Russian hacking in April of 2017 is one person, Hillary Clinton. It's unbelievable, too, because people say, oh, the threat now is Trump. Don't focus on Hillary. Well, how do you think you're going to defeat Trump? By finding out why Clinton lost. And the same reasons Clinton lost, they've actually doubled down and bolstered. There's a book written now about all the misogyny and all the Bernie Sanders. In this book, Bernie Sanders actually is one of the reasons blamed for Clinton losing.
Of course.
And it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable when they talk about the Russian influence. Well, number one, like I said, they can't point to anything Putin's going to do militarily anywhere. Aside from prop up Assad, they can't say this is a specific national security threat to us because of X, Y, and Z. They can't say that. But in terms of Clinton losing, has anyone ever said, hey, maybe we should fix the corruption in the DNC and make sure that the DNC doesn't screw over the next progressive candidate? No. Nobody's talking about that. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazile. Donna Brazile actually admitted that, yeah, she did actually give debate. She didn't give debate questions to Bernie. That's not the way it works. She gave debate questions to Hillary Clinton. She admitted that, no outrage. And then you get the Washington Post and the New York Times winning Pulitzer Prizes. It's well documented through WikiLeaks. There were friendly journalists in the New York Times. Maggie Haberman is one of them, who actually teed up stories and wrote stories. One guy, Glenn Thrush, worked for Politico, now works for the New York Times. He wrote to Podesta, say, hey, don't tell anybody that I sent you this. I know I'm not supposed to. An article, pre-publication. So the same system that cheated Bernie is not only still alive, it's working in overdrive. It's fighting for its life. It's not changing. I think the only way it can change is, I'm not advocating this, but another Trump win. But what they're doing right now, like you said, Trump's going to win re-election because Democrats are completely fractured. And it's interesting. The establishment doesn't get that. The establishment said, oh, the progressives have to fall in line, or people, like Mike or HA have to fall in line. But actually, it's us that they're blaming for costing the election. So they should fall in line with the progressives. Mm-hmm. It's the establishment that should actually fall in line with the Bernie or Jill Stein type voter. It's not the other way around, because without the Bernie or Jill Stein type voter, Democrats will lose again.
Right.
Joy Ann Reid and the Neera Tandons, they're going to go along with whoever the nominee is. It's the people that will say, no way, I'm not voting for a neocon. No way. It's those people you have to bring into the fold and say, okay, is this nominee good for you? So.
Right. And, the same to to bring up criticism again, not to make this about us, but I see it for Kyle Kulinski, Jimmy Dore, Tim Black. They accuse us of being too hard on the Democrats when, you know, the Republicans, they're much worse. But the thing that makes it important to attack Democrats is if we don't have introspection, if we don't try to reform the left, then, like you said, the Republican Party, they are empowered. And the thing about Democrats that I kind of feel like they're doing right now is they don't want to reform. And I kind of feel like they're just waiting it out right now. They're waiting out the storm. Yeah. They know that we're kind of headed towards a potential collapse of one of the two parties. And we're all incredibly frustrated with the political establishment. But I think that the way that they see it is all they have to do is wait maybe 8 years, potentially 12, years of Republican administrations. And then we will be running back to the Democratic Party, even if they're still corporatists, with open arms, because we will be so frustrated with Republicans. And then voila, they don't have to do shit. They don't have to change. And I kind of feel like this is something that's happening. But at the same time, another part of me feels as though we're so dissatisfied with right now with the Democratic Party that this is unsustainable. They have to change. So I kind of have these two competing sides right now, and I kind of wanted to know how you feel about the situation. I mean, are we headed for more of the same, or do you think that, something's got to give? They've got to change.
Well, they have to change if they cared about policies. But if they only care about donors, which everything they've done from Tom Perez to cheating Bernie to now backing Trump with Syria, everything they've shown is that they don't care about policies. So the whole thing, what does a progressive even mean nowadays? Does it mean somebody who backs Trump's Syria strike? Is that what so progressive now means must overthrow Assad and then occupy Syria? That's what it means to a great many people. Or to a great many people, progressive means must fear Putin, don't know why, but Putin worked with WikiLeaks and Trump to hack the DNC and expose all the corruption that we're not supposed to know about. So I don't even know what that term progressive means anymore. So in terms of the Democrats, you're right in that if they wanted to win, of course they would have to change. I thought that the mere win of Trump, I thought a Trump win would suddenly be this moment where they say, "Oh my God, we've been so wrong."
Me too.
Let's just restructure everything. Let's win again. Let's let's actually do something, break up banks or stop these wars or all these things. But they're not. They're actually doing, and they're creating a neo-McCarthy era politics. They've already created it. And then the Trump Syria strike really did work. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really did shut them up. Now they're not talking about it. I mean, I guess he almost won again, with this. But you're right. I mean, if they want to win, they will look at whatever, the Bernie voters. But how many times have you heard, oh, Bernie Sanders cost the election, or Bernie voters are you happy? And they even go, no, are you happy now because if you're voting for Bernie? Are you happy? It's like, no, you're the other way around. You cheated for the loser. Bernie Sanders would have won.
We were right all along. Come on.
Yeah, we were right along. Bernie Sanders would have won. If he wasn't cheated, he would have won the primary, and he would have won the when people say, well, he 4 million more votes. Well, yeah, but she was given questions. All the superdelegates, every establishment person. Oh, she's so qualified. She's under criminal investigation. That's another thing. Mm-hmm. If people got on me for writing about her email investigation. If she got indicted, we would have had Bernie as nominee, and Bernie would have destroyed Trump. Mm-hmm. But they don't care about, their thing is not about winning. Their thing is about political power. Right. And if they have to lose and still keep their political power, that's fine for them because they get all the donors and they still have their nice shiny desks and they still have their status and everything. If they lose again, I think that it's really going to be a paradigm shift. I think they'll still struggle for survival. But I think that, the next wave of leading Democrats will be the Tulsi Gabbards, the Nina Turners, and Bernie will be, in his 80s at that point. But, I just think that they're heading towards a direction of more Trump and everything they claim to dislike. So.
Right. It's hypocritical. It's frustrating. He's unhinged. He's deranged. He's unfit to be president. However, if he's going to be leading us into a new war, then I think that he is perfectly capable of doing that, despite everything that we've said about him being a loose cannon and whatnot. Yeah, the situation is very frustrating, and, it sucks because I feel like the show lately, it's probably the same for you, has been, like, extra sad and depressing for viewers because, you try to look for, like, any rays of hope, but with the exception of free college, by the way, in New York, which is great. But it's just such a shitty, toxic political situation. And now it's becoming scary with Syria. And now, with Donald Trump posturing in North Korea, the situation, it just is, it feels lose-lose for a voter. And it feels as though we have no power right now in the elites, the oligarchy, the military-industrial complex. They're running things right now. They always have been, but we're really seeing, the scale of control that they have, and we have little to no say. So, I won't take up too much of your time. So do you want to take a moment and just plug anything that you are currently working on and plug your Twitter and whatnot?
Yeah, if you want to, follow me, just go to H.A. Goodman on YouTube, and counterpropa.com is my new publication, and H.A. Goodman author on Twitter. But yeah, Mike, it was really great being back. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always good to have you on the show. I think you always have very good insight on issues that are really complex and controversial that people don't want to touch, but you run like right into it. And that's what I love about you, because you don't give a shit.
No, I don't. Thank you so much, Mike.
I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it. See you soon.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.